Ambassador Jiho Kim stood at the speaker's podium in the Grand Hall of Meridian Prime Station. He had stood here 500 times before. Each time, he brought evidence, treaties, and solutions. Each time, the council ignored him. The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from 17 different species. Crystal pillars reached up to a dome that showed the stars outside. Every species had their designated area, designed for their specific needs. The Aquilians sat in water-filled tanks. The Krogothi preferred heated stone platforms. Humans had simple chairs. Jiho looked down at his tablet. Another border conflict. Another potential war. Another chance for him to prevent bloodshed that nobody seemed to want prevented. Honored council members, Jiho began, his voice carrying through the translation systems. I present evidence of systematic violence in the Talos sector. Both Aquilian and Krogothi forces have committed acts that violate 12 separate peace accords. Speaker Valther, an Aquilian whose species looked like crystalline mantis creatures, made a dismissive gesture with his fur claw. Ambassador Kim, we have heard these complaints before. The Talos sector belongs to Aquilian space. The Krogothi are invaders. Counselor Thresh, a massive Krogothi who resembled an armored bear, slammed his fist on his platform. Lies. That sector was ours for centuries before your kind even achieved spaceflight. Jiho had heard this argument 93 times. He had the number memorized. The historical records show. We do not need human history lessons, Pelther interrupted. Your species has only been in space for 300 years. You know nothing of our ancient claims. Several council members made sounds that the translators registered as laughter. Jiho felt his jaw tighten, but he continued. Regardless of historical claims, both sides are currently killing civilians. I have images hereof. Why do you waste our time with these images? Asked a counselor from the Vex species. War has casualties. This is known. Jiho pulled up the images anyway. Destroyed colonies. Burned farms. Bodies. These are not soldiers. These are families, children. Perhaps if humans were stronger, you would understand that expansion requires sacrifice, Thresh said. The Krogothi counselor leaned forward. But your species has always been soft. You negotiate when you should conquer. You talk when you should strike. More laughter. Jiho noticed young Myre Choi sitting in the human delegation area. She was new, only 2 years in the diplomatic course. Her hands were clenched into fists. Her face showed the anger he had learned to hide. I am proposing a peacekeeping force, Jiho said, speaking over the noise. Human ships, along with volunteers from neutral species, can patrol the sector. We can enforce a ceasefire while proper negotiations. Human peacekeepers? Velther's tone dripped with contempt. Yes, we know about your peacekeepers. They stand between armies and accomplish nothing. They die for species that are not even their own. It is pathetic. The word hung in the air. Pathetic. The translators had selected it carefully from hundreds of options in Aquilian language. They meant for it to hurt. Jiho thought about the names on the memorial wall in human quarters. 47 names had been added just last month. 47 humans who died trying to protect people who are now laughing at them. We have prevented 17 wars in the last decade, Jiho said quietly. How many billions of lives is that? How many of your own people are alive because humans stood in harm's way? 17 conflicts that would have resolved themselves quickly, Thresh responded. Instead, you drag them out with your endless talking. You are not peacekeepers. You are the galaxy's janitors, cleaning up messes while accomplishing nothing of importance. The chamber erupted in agreement. Species that had been at each other's throats moments ago found common ground in mocking humanity. Jiho glanced at Captain Hyen Park, who was observing from the visitors' gallery. The military officer's face was stone. but his eyes were cold with fury. I propose a vote, Geo said, changing tactics. Humans have served this council for 2 centuries. We have offered our ships, our people, our resources. I now request formal mutual defense treaties. If human peacekeepers die protecting your borders, I want assurances that you will help protect ours. The chamber went quiet. Then Velther spoke. Why would we commit our forces to defend human space? You face no threats. You start no wars. You need protection from nothing. Because we have earned it, Geo said simply. Because we have bled for you. Earned it? Thresh laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. You have done your job. A servant does not demand payment after completing their duties. Should we thank the cleaning systems for removing our waste? Jiho looked around the chamber. He saw agreement on every face. Even the species that humans had saved from extinction were nodding along. Let us vote, Velther declared. All in favor of mutual defense agreements with humanity? Not a single hand, claw, or tentacle rose. All opposed? Every member voted against it. Even the Ven, who humans considered friends, voted no. Ambassador Tarek of the Ven at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. The matter is settled, Velther announced. Now, can we move on to important business? The humans have wasted enough of our time today. That was when something inside Jiho broke. Not in an emotional way. It was more like a lock clicking open. A decision solidifying into certainty. One more matter, Jiho said. I propose that we limit human speaking time at council sessions. They bring up these minor issues constantly. Perhaps one statement per session would be sufficient. Jiho stared at Velther. The Aquilian was serious. After 200 years of human service, they wanted to silence them completely. Let us vote, Velther said cheerfully. All in favor of limiting human participation? 14 species voted yes. Only 2 abstained. The Ven voted no, but it did not matter. Excellent, Velther declared. This will make our sessions much more efficient. Jiho closed his tablet. He gathered his papers with careful, precise movements. The chamber was already moving on to other business, having forgotten about the humans immediately. Ambassador Kim, you may return to your Velther began. No, Jiho said quietly. The word cut through the noise like a blade. The chamber fell silent. Humans did not say no. Humans were polite, diplomatic, patient. Saying no was not something they did. Jiho looked up at the council. His face was calm, but his eyes were glacial. For 200 years, humanity has served this council. We have negotiated your disputes. We have died in your wars. We have given our resources, our knowledge, and our blood. And in return, you mock us. You call us janitors and servants. You vote to silence us. Ambassador Kim, you are out of order, Velther started. I am not finished speaking, Jiho interrupted. And you cannot silence me yet. Your vote takes effect next session. This is still my session to speak. He let that sink in. Then he continued. You have forgotten something important. We chose to serve you. We were not forced. We were not conquered. We decided that a peaceful galaxy was worth the cost. But you have mistaken our choice for weakness. You believe we need you. You are wrong. Jiho tapped his tablet. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all Galactic Council activities. We are recalling all peacekeepers, all diplomatic staff, and all human presence from Council space. Our borders are now closed. We will not answer your calls. We will not mediate your disputes. We will not die for you anymore. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted over each other. Velther was gesturing frantically. Jiho raised his voice over the chaos. You wanted to know what you earned from humanity? Nothing. You earned nothing. Because you never valued it in the first place. Goodbye, Council. Solve your own problems now. He turned and walked toward the exit. The entire human delegation stood and followed him. My Ray was crying, but she walked with her head high. Captain Hyan Park was smiling, a cold, satisfied expression. This is absurd. Velther shouted. You cannot just leave. Ambassador Kim. Ambassador. But Jiho did not look back. The doors closed behind the last human, leaving the council chamber in chaos. Within the hour, every human ship in council space began moving. Peacekeepers abandoned their posts. Diplomatic stations powered down. Trade convoys changed course back toward human territory. The withdrawal had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what peace actually cost. Admiral So-Min Lee watched the tactical display in the Fleet Command Center. Green markers represented human vessels. Thousands of them, all moving in perfect coordination. Every ship was coming home. Status report, she said calmly. Got her operations officer checked his screens. 72% of our forces have crossed back into human territory. Medical stations are shutting down on schedule. Trade convoys have rerouted. Diplomatic staff are aboard transport ships. Any resistance? None, Admiral. Council species seem confused. Many are still treating this as a temporary protest. So-Min allowed herself a small smile. They will learn otherwise. Continue withdrawal operations. I want every human out of council space within 48 hours. Across the command center, hundreds of personnel worked efficiently. This withdrawal had been planned for years, updated constantly, ready to execute at any moment. Nobody had believed they would actually need it. But they did, and it was working perfectly. Director Do-Yun Kong entered the command center. He was head of Human Intelligence Services, a thin man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Admiral, I have preliminary reports on council reactions. Show me. Da-Yun pulled up a holographic display. The council held an emergency session 3 hours after we left. It lasted 17 minutes before dissolving into arguments. No decisions were made. They scheduled another session for tomorrow. They think we are bluffing, So-Min observed. Most of them, yes. Speaker Velther is claiming we will return within a week, begging for readmission. Do-Yun switched the display. However, some species are panicking. The Ven have sent 14 requests for private communication with Ambassador Jiho. The Torvians are frantically moving ships to borders. They realize we are no longer defending. And the major powers? The Aquilians and Kragathi? They are already fighting. A skirmish broke out in the Talos sector 40 minutes after our peacekeepers left their posts. 12 ships destroyed so far. It will be a full battle by tomorrow. So-Min had expected this. Wars did not start because people wanted to fight. They started because no one stopped them from fighting. Humans had been that stopping force. Now they were gone. What about the trade networks? She asked. Collapsing faster than we predicted. We control 67% of the relay stations in council space. Without them, communication is spotty. Trade ships are stranded. Several species are already experiencing supply shortages. They will adapt, So-Min said. Eventually. But it will take months, maybe years. And that is assuming they cooperate with each other. Do-Yun looked grim. Admiral, my analysts are predicting complete council collapse within 6 months. The death toll could reach hundreds of billions. So-Min turned away from the displays. Those deaths will not be our responsibility. We tried to prevent them. For 200 years, we tried. They chose this. I know. But still, I know, So-Min echoed quietly. Captain Hyan Park was overseeing border fortifications at the human boundary. His battlecruiser, The Indomitable hung in space alongside 36 other warships. Behind them, massive defense platforms were being activated for the first time in decades. "Sir, we are detecting Aquilian scout ships at the border," his tactical officer reported. "Are they requesting passage?" "Yes, sir. Standard trade convoy. They want to use our territory to bypass the war zone in the Talos sector." Hyen checked the protocols. Ambassador Jiho had been very clear. Deny them. No council ships in human space. No exceptions. "Sir, they are saying this is an emergency route. Their cargo includes medical supplies for civilian populations." Hyen felt a momentary guilt. Then he remembered Counselor Thresh calling humans janitors. He remembered the vote to silence them. Denied. If they want to deliver supplies, they can go around. Or through. Not our concern anymore. The Aquilian ships lingered at the border for an hour before turning away. Hyen knew they would try to navigate through the war zone. Some would make it. Some would not. That was their choice to make now. More ships arrived at human borders over the next day. Then vessels carrying refugees. Torvian merchants seeking safe passage. Even a few Krogothi ships fleeing from Aquilian reprisals. Hyen turned them all away. His communication officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, the Ven are mentioning their historical alliance with us. They are asking us to remember our friendship. Inform them that friends vote for each other in council sessions," Hyen replied coldly. "They voted to silence us. We are giving them exactly what they wanted. Silence." On the third day, Ambassador Tarek of the Ven arrived personally. His ship broadcast emergency diplomatic codes, the kind reserved for critical situations. Hyen almost denied him too, but decided to forward the request to Ambassador Jiho. Jiho was in his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel returning to Earth. He had been reading casualty reports from the Talos sector. The battle was now in its third day. Thousands were dead. He felt nothing. "Ambassador Tarek is requesting permission to enter human space," his aide informed him. "He wants to speak with you personally. Tell him no." "Sir, he says his homeworld is under attack. The Krogothi are invading. He is begging for help." Jiho closed his eyes. The Ven had been allies once. Good allies. But they had still voted against mutual defense. They had still voted to limit human participation. "How many died, sir? How many Ven died before he decided to ask us for help?" His aide checked. "Initial reports suggest 70,000 casualties. The invasion force is overwhelming their defenses." 70,000. That was more than all the human peacekeepers who had died in the last decade. Jiho opened his eyes. "Grant him permission to land. But tell him we will offer no military assistance. He can come, but only to hear that in person." Tarek's ship docked at a human station 2 hours later. The Ven ambassador looked terrible. His species were tall, graceful beings with feathered crests. Tarek's crest was drooping. His eyes were desperate. Jiho met him in a plain conference room. No ceremony. No diplomatic pleasantries. "Ambassador Kim, thank you for seeing me. I know we do not deserve." "You do not," Jiho interrupted. "Say what you came to say?" Tarek flinched. "The Krogothi are destroying my world. They are burning cities, killing civilians. We need help. We need human peacekeepers, human ships, human intervention. No, please. I voted against silencing you. I was the only one who—" "You voted against mutual defense," Jiho said flatly. "When I asked for an alliance, you voted no. You told me that the Ven could not commit forces to human protection. So now, humans will not commit forces to Ven protection. This seems fair, but my people are dying. So were mine." Jiho stood up. 47 human peacekeepers died last month in the neutral zones. Do you know what the council said? Nothing. No moment of silence. No acknowledgement. They died protecting species that did not even bother to learn their names. Tarek was crying now. The Ven were emotional beings. I am sorry. I am so sorry. We were wrong. We took you for granted. We treated you terribly. Please, I am begging you. Help us. Why? Jiho asked. Give me one reason why human soldiers should die for the Ven. Because you are good, Tarek whispered. Because you save people. That is what you do. Jiho felt something crack inside his carefully maintained composure. We saved people who appreciated it. We saved people who valued the sacrifice. You did not. You laughed when Thresh called us janitors. I saw you. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Please. Go home, Ambassador Tarek. Die with your people if you must. Or surrender to the Krogathi. Or find allies elsewhere. But do not ask humanity for help. We are done helping those who do not help us. Tarek left in tears. His ship departed human space and jumped toward his dying homeworld. Jiho returned to his quarters and did not emerge for the rest of the journey. By the end of the first week, Council space was in chaos. 3 separate wars were now active. Trade had collapsed by 40%. Pirate raids were increasing exponentially. 17 diplomatic incidents had occurred without humans to mediate them. The council met again. This time, the session lasted 3 hours and accomplished nothing. Species shouted accusations at each other. Old grudges resurfaced. Without human moderators, without human peacekeepers, without human infrastructure, everything was falling apart. Speaker Velther tried to take control. We must elect a new mediator species. Someone to replace the humans. Why would we trust any species here? A counselor demanded. The humans were neutral. Everyone else has agendas. The humans are not neutral. Thresh roared. They are cowards who abandoned their duties. They had no duties, another voice said quietly. It was a minor species, one that rarely spoke. They volunteered. They chose to help us. We forced them to leave. Nonsense. They threw a tantrum like children. But doubt was spreading. Some species were beginning to realize what they had lost. Others were too proud to admit it. The council adjourned with nothing resolved. Admiral Soman received daily intelligence reports. Each one was worse than the last. Humanitarian crisis. Refugee floods. Resource shortages. Economic collapse. Should we do something? Her operations officer asked. Soman looked at the reports for a long time. Then she locked them away. No, we should not. They made their choice. Now they live with it. Human space became a fortress. Ships patrolled borders constantly. Defense platforms hummed with power. And inside human territory, life continued normally, peacefully, because humans had never needed the council. The council had needed them. Dr. Yoonji Han sat in her research station, orbiting Jupiter, watching the galaxy tear itself apart. As a xenosociologist, she had spent her career studying how different species interacted. Now she was documenting their collapse. Her screens showed data from thousands of sources. Every number told the same story. Without humanity, the Galactic Council was destroying itself. Computer, display conflict analysis, she said. Holographic charts appeared. 2 months ago, there had been 17 active conflicts in Council space. Humans had been managing all of them, keeping them contained. Now there were 42 wars. Some were small border disputes. Others threatened to consume entire regions. The Aquilian-Krogathi War was the largest. It had started as a skirmish in the Talos sector. Now it spanned 17 star systems. Millions were dead. Billions more were displaced. And there was no end in sight, because nobody could negotiate a ceasefire. Yunji pulled up economic data. Human trade networks had handled 70% of interspecies commerce. Those networks were gone now. Trade had collapsed by 60% in some sectors. Species that relied on imported resources were facing shortages. Famines were starting on agricultural worlds that needed technology they could no longer obtain. "This is worse than I predicted," she muttered at her colleague. Dr. Kangmin CO appeared on her communication screen. He was stationed on Mars, running similar research. "Yunji, have you seen the latest refugee numbers?" "Sending them to my display now." The numbers were staggering. 40 billion refugees were fleeing war zones. They were heading to any world that might take them. But without human coordination, there was no system to help them. Refugee ships were being turned away from borders. Some were dying in space, their life support failing while they searched for sanctuary. "The Council used to handle this," Kangmin said quietly. "Humans did, you mean?" "The Council just took credit." Yunji pulled up her research from before the withdrawal. She had been analyzing human contributions to galactic society. The numbers had shocked her then. They horrified her now. Humans were mediating over 2,000 disputes annually, she said, reading from her notes. Most of them never reached Council attention. Humans solved them quietly, before they became wars. What else? Infrastructure. 40% of communications relays in Council space were human-built and human-maintained. They are failing now. Trade protocols, shipping lanes, resource distribution networks. Humans managed all of it. Kangmin shook his head. And the Council called them janitors. They were not wrong, Yunji said bitterly. Janitors do essential work that everyone takes for granted. The difference is, you notice immediately when janitors stop working. The Council was too stupid to notice until it was too late. She compiled her research into a report. It was the most depressing document she had ever written. The title was simple: The Hidden Cost of Peace, Humanity's Invisible Labor in Galactic Governance. She published it on all human academic networks. Within hours, it was being discussed everywhere. Some humans felt vindicated. Others felt guilty. Everyone realized how much work their diplomats and peacekeepers had been doing. The report eventually leaked to Council space. Some species read it and felt shame. Others denied it. Most were too busy fighting to care. Ambassador Tarek had returned to his homeworld just in time to watch it fall. The Krogathi had been merciless. Cities burned. Populations were enslaved. The Ven government evacuated what they could and fled to their colony worlds. EK survived. He found himself in a refugee camp on a minor world, surrounded by his people. They were broken, defeated, hopeless. And they all asked him the same question. Why did the humans not help us? Tarek had no good answer. Because we did not deserve their help, was the truth. But it was too painful to say. He still had his diplomatic credentials. He used them to access long-range communications. He tried to contact Ambassador Jiho again. The message was blocked. He tried Captain Hyan Park. Blocked. He tried every human official he had ever known. All blocked. Finally, he sent a message to any human who would listen. My name is Tarek of the Ven. My people are dying. We were wrong. We were arrogant and foolish. We took humanity for granted. I understand if you hate us. I understand if you never forgive us. But please, if there is any mercy left in your species, help us. Not for me, for the innocent who had no part in our mistakes. The message broadcast into human space. Tarek did not know if anyone received it. He did not know if anyone cared. He simply sent it and hoped. In the council chambers, things were worse than chaotic. They were vicious. Speaker Velther tried to maintain order, but he had no authority. Nobody respected him. The various species had divided into three factions. The militarists, led by the Krogothi, believed in expansion through force. They saw the chaos as opportunity. They were conquering smaller species and daring anyone to stop them. The isolationists wanted to close their borders and ignore everyone else. They were hoarding resources and refusing to trade. This made the shortages worse. The cooperationists wanted to work together to rebuild what humans had created. But they were the smallest faction, and nobody listened to them. We must form a new peacekeeping force, a cooperationist counselor suggested. We can volunteer ships and personnel, just as the humans did. Who would lead it? Velther asked. Who would command forces from multiple species? We could rotate command. Each species takes turns. Thresh laughed. And when my species has command, you will trust us? When the Aquilians have command, I will trust them? You are dreaming. He was right. The peacekeeping proposal died quickly. Every species would only trust themselves, and that was not enough. Someone suggested hiring mercenaries. But mercenaries had no loyalty, and they made conflicts worse, not better. Someone else suggested automated defense systems. But technology could not negotiate. It could only fight. Every solution required trust. Trust required time. And time was running out. Counselor Thresh was discovering that winning wars was easier than governing conquests. The Krogothi had taken 12 systems in 2 months. It should have been a triumph. Instead, it was becoming a nightmare. Every conquered species resisted. Rebellions broke out constantly. The Krogothi military was stretched thin trying to hold everything. And the cost was devastating. Our economy is collapsing, his advisor informed him. War is expensive. We are spending more than we earn. We are taking resources from conquered worlds, Thresh argued. Not enough. Their infrastructure is damaged from fighting. Their populations are uncooperative. We are getting a fraction of what we expected. Thresh growled in frustration. When humans maintained the peace, resources flowed freely. Trade was efficient. Now everything was disrupted, and even the conquerors were suffering. We need to end this war, his advisor said carefully. We need to negotiate with the Aquilians. Never. We are winning, are we? How many soldiers have we lost? How many ships? How much money? The advisor pulled up statistics. At this rate, we will collapse from within before we conquer anything else. Thresh stared at the numbers. The advisor was right, but he could not admit it. To negotiate now would be to admit weakness, and the Krogothi did not show weakness. Continue the war, he ordered. His advisor bowed and left. But Thresh knew the truth. The Krogothi Empire was overextended. They were trapped in a conflict they could not afford, but could not afford to lose. On Earth, President Jiwan Nam was facing pressure from her own people. Protesters gathered outside government buildings every day. Some demanded that humans return to council space. Others demanded the opposite. We should help them, the protesters said. We are better than this. We do not let people die to make a point. But others disagreed. They disrespected us for centuries. Let them solve their own problems. Jiwan was torn. She understood both arguments. In her office, she met with her cabinet to discuss options. The refugee crisis is getting worse, her humanitarian advisor reported. 40 billion displaced people. Many are dying. We have the resources to help. If we help, they will think we are weak, General Minho Kwan argued. They will think our withdrawal was meaningless. If we do not help, we become what they accused us of being, Ambassador Jiho said quietly. He had returned to Earth, but was still involved in policy discussions. We withdrew to teach a lesson, not to become cruel. What do you suggest? Jiwan asked. Limited humanitarian aid, medical supplies, refugee assistance, but no political engagement. We help the innocent, but we do not return to the council. General Minho shook his head. Any help will be seen as weakness. Any refusal to help will be inhumane, Jiho countered. We can be strong and merciful. The two are not contradictory. The argument continued for hours. Eventually, Jiwan made a decision. We will provide humanitarian aid, but only that. No military intervention. No political negotiations. We help the victims, and then we leave. General Minho was unhappy, but he accepted the decision. Ambassador Jiho looked relieved. Within days, human medical ships began appearing in council space. They went to refugee camps, distributed supplies, treated the injured, and left immediately. They did not ask for permission. They did not negotiate. They just helped and disappeared. The council did not know how to respond. Some species were grateful. Others were suspicious. All of them were confused. Humans were helping without asking for anything in return. It did not make sense to them. Speaker Veltha received reports of human aid ships. He called an emergency council session to discuss it. The humans are violating our space, a counselor complained. They are helping refugees, another countered. How is that a violation? They did not ask permission. Would we have granted it? The council argued about human aid while people died around them. They could not even agree on whether help was welcome. It was pathetic. Velther finally silenced them. We will prepare a formal apology. We will request that humanity returns. We will offer them. An alarm interrupted him. Krogathi ships were approaching the council station itself. They were broadcasting demands, threats. They wanted the council to officially recognize their conquests. This is insane, Velther said. They would not dare attack us. But they did. The Krogathi opened fire. The council station's defenses activated, but they were weak. Humans had maintained them. Without human engineers, the systems were failing. The attack was brutal. Sections of the station were destroyed. Thousands died. And the galaxy watched as the heart of their civilization burned. The attack on Meridian Prime Station lasted 4 hours. By the time the Krogathi withdrew, 3,000 counselors, staff, and visitors were dead. Entire sections of the station were exposed to space. Life support was failing in 12 districts. Captain Hyon Park watched it happen from his command center. His ships were close enough to respond. He could save them. But his orders were clear. No intervention. Sir, the station is broadcasting distress calls on all frequencies, his communications officer reported. They are requesting immediate assistance from any available forces. Hyon said nothing. He watched the tactical display as Krogathi ships finished their attack and retreated. He watched as the council station listed in space, venting atmosphere. Sir, we are the closest military force. We could be there in 30 minutes. I am aware, Hyon said coldly. People are dying, sir. People have been dying for 2 months. The council did not care when they were refugees. Why should we care when they are counselors? His officer went quiet. Everyone on the bridge was uncomfortable. They had joined the military to protect people. Watching people die without helping felt wrong, but orders were orders. And the orders came from the highest levels of human government. On Earth, President Jiwan Nam was in an emergency meeting when the news arrived. The attack on Meridian Prime. Thousands dead. More dying every minute. We need to respond, her humanitarian advisor said immediately. This is a catastrophe. General Minho Quan shook his head. This is their problem. They have their own military forces. Let them save themselves. Their forces are scattered across a dozen wars. The advisor argued. Nobody is close enough. Only our ships can help. Ji-Wan looked at Ambassador Ji-Ho. He had been quiet throughout the meeting. What do you think? Ji-Ho was staring at casualty reports on his tablet. 3,000 dead. 5,000 injured. Numbers rising. He thought about what he had said to Tarek. He thought about the lesson they were trying to teach. We withdrew to make them understand what they lost, he said slowly. We wanted them to see what peace costs, what our service meant, and Ji-Wan pressed. And I think they see it now. The question is whether we want to be right, or whether we want to be good. Explain? Ji-Ho looked up. We were right to leave. They deserved it. But if we let thousands die when we could save them, then we become what they accused us of being. We become the weak, cowardly species that abandons others in need. General Minho stood up angrily. They abandoned us first. They mocked our dead. They called us janitors. They did, Ji-Ho agreed. And they were wrong. But we do not prove them wrong by acting like them. We prove them wrong by being better. The room fell silent. Ji-Wan looked around at her advisors. Some agreed with Ji-Ho. Others supported General Minho. The decision was hers to make. How long until our ships can reach Meridian Prime? She asked. Her military advisor checked. Captain Hyen Park's fleet is 30 minutes away. They are awaiting orders. Ji-Wan closed her eyes. She thought about the 47 peacekeepers who died last month. She thought about 200 years of human service. She thought about what humanity stood for. Send the order. Tell Captain Park to render assistance. Save as many as he can. General Minho looked betrayed. Madam President, we are not doing this for them, Ji-Wan said firmly. We are doing this because it is right. Because if we let people die when we could save them, then everything we stood for means nothing. The order was transmitted. Captain Hyen received it with mixed feelings. Part of him wanted to refuse. Part of him was relieved. He had not wanted to watch people die. All ships, battle formation. We are going in. His fleet jumped to Meridian Prime. They arrived to chaos. The station was crippled, listing badly. Escape pods were launching, but many were damaged. Fires burned in exposed sections. Begin search and rescue operations, Hyen ordered. Medical teams, prepare to receive casualties. Engineering teams, stabilize that station before it breaks apart. Human ships moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this hundreds of times before. Rescue operations were something they excelled at. Within minutes, they had established control of the situation. Hyen personally led a boarding team onto the station. They found survivors trapped in damaged sections. They found injured counselors who could not reach escape pods. They found bodies. In the main chamber, Speaker Velther was trapped under debris. His crystalline body was cracked, leaking the fluid that kept him alive. He was dying. Hyen stood over him. For a moment, he considered leaving. This was the being who had called humans pathetic, who had voted to silence them, who had dismissed their sacrifices. Then Hyen called for a medical team. We need emergency stabilization here. Aquilian biology. Move quickly. Velther's eyes focused on him. The translator was damaged, but he managed to speak. Human. Why? Because it is the right thing to do, Hyen said simply. That is what humans do, even when you do not deserve it. The medical team arrived and began working. Velther would live, though he would need extensive treatment. Hyen moved on to find other survivors. The rescue operation took 6 hours. By the end, human forces had saved 8,000 lives. They stabilized the station, repaired critical systems, and provided medical care. Then they prepared to leave. Velther, now in a medical tank, sent a message to Captain Hyen. Please, I must speak with you. Hyan almost refused, but something in the Aquilian's voice made him reconsider. He went to the medical bay. Velther looked terrible. His crystalline body was held together by medical nanites. But he was alive. Captain Park, you saved my life. You saved the Council. We saved people who were dying. Nothing more. You could have left us. Yes. Why did you not? Velther asked. We treated you terribly. We deserve this. All of it. Hyan looked at the alien who had called humans janitors. We did not come back because you deserve it. We came back because it was right. There is a difference. I understand that now, Velther whispered. Too late, but I understand. Is there anything else? Hyan asked coldly. Tell your ambassador. Tell Ambassador Kim that I am sorry. Tell him the Council was wrong. Tell him we were fools who did not see what we had until it was gone. Hyan nodded. I will tell him. But it changes nothing. We are still leaving. You are still alone. He turned and left the medical bay. His ships withdrew from Meridian Prime shortly after. They left behind medical supplies and emergency equipment. But they took all their personnel. The Council survivors watched them go. For the first time, they truly understood what they had lost. News of the rescue spread quickly. The entire galaxy heard about it. Humans had saved the Council despite everything. They had responded to an attack with mercy, not revenge. Some Council species felt ashamed. Others were confused. How could humans still help after all the insults? How could they be so forgiving? But humans were not forgiving. They were simply being consistent. They saved people because that was who they were. It did not require friendship. It did not require gratitude. It just required need. Ambassador Tarek received the news in his refugee camp. Humans had saved the Council. They had proven their goodness, even in the face of hatred. He felt a mixture of hope and despair. Hope because humans were still capable of mercy. Despair because his people were still dying, and mercy had not extended to them. Yet Dr. Yoonji Han watched the aftermath of the rescue. She was recording everything for historical analysis. The galaxy was at a turning point. She could feel it. Computer, analyze Council communications for the past 24 hours. The analysis showed a dramatic shift. Before the rescue, most Council species were still blaming humans for abandoning them. After the rescue, the narrative changed. Now they were talking about their own failures, about how they had treated humanity, about what they had lost. It is not enough, Yoonji muttered. They are sorry now, but will they change? That was the real question. Could the Council learn? Could they become better? Or would they fall back into old patterns once the crisis passed? On Earth, Ambassador Jiho received Captain Hyan's report. The rescue had been successful. The Council was grateful. Speaker Velther had apologized. Jiho felt nothing. Apologies were easy when you were dying. The real test would come later. Would the Council actually change their behavior? Would they treat humans with respect? Or was this just temporary humiliation? What do we do now? His aide asked. We wait, Jiho said. We watch. And we see if they learned anything. President Yuan addressed the human population that evening. Her speech was broadcast across all human worlds. Today, our forces saved thousands of lives at Meridian Prime. Some people are asking why we helped those who wronged us. The answer is simple. We help because it is right, not because it is rewarded. We are strong enough to be merciful. We are confident enough to be kind. That is what makes us human. The speech was well received. Most humans agreed with the decision. Even those who wanted revenge understood the reasoning. Humanity would not compromise its values to teach a lesson, but the speech ended with a warning. However, mercy does not mean weakness. We saved lives today, but we have not returned to the Council. We will not return until they prove they have changed. Until they show us respect, not just gratitude. The galaxy is learning what peace costs. Let them pay the price. In Council space, the wars continued. But something had shifted. The rescue had shown everyone what humanity represented. It had reminded them what they had lost. And slowly, very slowly, some species began to realize that pride was expensive. More expensive than they could afford. 3 weeks after the rescue at Meridian Prime, a formal message arrived at Earth. It was addressed to President Jiwan Nam and bore the seals of all 17 Council species. Even the Krogathi had signed it. The message was an apology. Not a brief one. It was 40 pages long, written in careful diplomatic language. It acknowledged specific failures. It listed every insult, every dismissal, every moment when the Council had taken humanity for granted. President Jiwan read it in her office with Ambassador Jiho beside her. When she finished, she handed it to him without comment. Jiho read slowly. The apology was genuine. He could tell because it did not make excuses. It did not blame circumstances or misunderstandings. It simply admitted fault. They are asking us to return, Jiho observed. With conditions, Jiwan added. She pulled up the second part of the message. They are offering us permanent Council membership with full voting rights. Priority speaking privileges. A memorial for fallen human peacekeepers. That is not enough, Jiho said flatly. I know. What do you want? Jiho had been thinking about this for months. He had thought about it every day since the withdrawal. He knew exactly what humanity needed. If we return, it must be on our terms. Not as supplicants. Not as servants. As equals who will not tolerate disrespect again. Draft a response, Jiwan ordered. Tell them what we need. Jiho spent 3 days writing humanity's terms. They were non-negotiable. He sent them to every Council species simultaneously, so no one could claim they were not consulted. The terms were simple but absolute. First, humans would have veto power over any Council military action. No war could be started without human approval. Second, all Council species would contribute proportionally to peacekeeping operations. Humanity would no longer bear the burden alone. Third, human diplomatic personnel would be treated with formal respect. Any insult or dismissal would result in immediate human withdrawal with no further chances. Fourth, a memorial would be built in the Council chambers. Every human who died in service to galactic peace would be honored. Council members would pass it every day as a reminder of what peace costs. Fifth, all Council species would participate in humanitarian law tribunals. War crimes would be prosecuted regardless of who committed them. The terms were released publicly. Every species in the galaxy could read them. There would be no secret negotiations, no backroom deals. Everything would be transparent. The reaction was mixed. Some species accepted immediately. They had learned their lesson and wanted humans back at any cost. Others resisted. They saw the terms as humiliating. Speaker Velther called an emergency council session. He was still recovering from his injuries, but he insisted on attending. His crystalline body was visibly scarred from the attack. We have received humanity's terms, he announced. We must decide whether to accept them. Councillor Thresh stood up. The Krogathi leader looked exhausted. His empire was collapsing under the weight of unsustainable conquests. But pride still burned in his eyes. These terms are unacceptable, Thresh declared. They give humans control over our military decisions. They demand tribute in the form of peacekeeping forces. They humiliate us. We humiliated ourselves, a small voice said. It was a counselor from the Torvian species. They were a minor power, one that had suffered greatly in the chaos. We mocked humans while they died for us. We voted to silence them. We took everything and gave nothing. The humiliation is ours, and we earned it. So we should surrender to human demands? Thresh challenged. We should accept the consequences of our actions, the Torvian replied. We broke something precious. If we want it repaired, we must pay the cost. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued that the terms were too harsh. Others argued they were not harsh enough. But slowly, a consensus emerged that the galaxy needed humans. Not because humans were powerful, though they were. Not because humans had resources, though they did. But because humans were willing to do the work of peace. They were willing to stand between armies. They were willing to negotiate when others wanted to fight. Let us vote, Velther said finally. All in favor of accepting humanity's terms? 12 species voted yes immediately. 2 abstained. 3 voted no, including the Krogathi. The motion passes, Velther announced. We accept humanity's terms. We invite them to return to the Galactic Council. The message was sent to Earth the same day. President Jiwan received it with satisfaction. Ambassador Jiho felt nothing. He had expected this outcome. They accepted, Jiwan told him. You will return to the Council as our chief ambassador. Jiho shook his head. No, I'm done with them. Send someone else. Who do you suggest? Myray Choi. She is young, but she is not naive. She watched them mock us. She watched our people die. She will not forgive easily. She will not forget. That is what we need now. Jiwan considered this. Myray was only 32, young for such an important position. But Jiho was right. The new human presence at the council needed to be firm, unyielding, and unwilling to accept disrespect. Very well. Offer her the position. Myray Choi received the news in her quarters on the diplomatic vessel. She was shocked. She was also ready. I accept, she said simply. But I want Captain Hyen Park assigned as our military liaison. And I want Dr. Yoonji Han as our historical advisor. If we are doing this, we are doing it properly. Her terms were accepted. The new human delegation was assembled. They were younger than the old one, less patient, less forgiving. They had watched the galaxy collapse. They would not let it happen again. The human fleet returned to council space slowly. Not in retreat, not in humiliation, but in strength. Their ships moved in perfect formation, a reminder of their capability. They could destroy the council if they wished. They chose not to. That choice made them more powerful than any weapon. Captain Hyen Park led the fleet personally. As they approached Meridian Prime, he broadcast a message to all council species. Human forces are returning to council space. We come in peace. We come in service. But we are not the same humans who left. We will not tolerate disrespect. We will not accept mockery. We are here because it is right, but we will leave again if necessary. Remember that. The message was heard across the galaxy. It was a warning and a promise. The council chambers had been repaired. The damage from the Krogathi attack was gone. But in the center of the room, something new had been built. A memorial. Black stone, polished to a mirror shine. On its surface, thousands of names were carved. Every human who had died in service to the galaxy. Every peacekeeper, every diplomat, every medical worker. The memorial was impossible to ignore. It stood in the exact center of the chamber. Every counselor would pass it to reach their seats. Every speech would be given in its shadow dot at the base of the memorial. Words were carved in every council language. They gave their lives for species that were not their own. Remember them. Honor them. Never take peace for granted again. Ambassador Myray Choi arrived at the council chambers with Captain Hyen Park and Dr. Yoonji Han. They walked through the entrance together. Every counselor stopped to watch them. Myray was young, but she walked with confidence. She wore a formal diplomatic uniform, but she carried herself like a soldier. She had learned from Jiho. She would not be pushed around. She stopped at the memorial. She found the names of the 47 peacekeepers who died before the withdrawal. She placed her hand on the stone and stood in silence for a full minute. The entire council chamber was silent. They watched her honor the dead. They remembered what those deaths had meant, or rather, what they should have meant. Then Myray walked to the human delegation area. She sat down without acknowledging anyone. Captain Hine and Dr. Yunji took their positions beside her. Speaker Velther stood up. His voice was different now. Less arrogant. More careful. The Galactic Council recognizes the return of humanity. Ambassador Myray Choi, you are welcomed. We are honored by your presence. Myray stood. We are not here to be honored. We are here to work. Let us begin. Her tone was professional but cold. The message was clear. Humanity had returned, but the relationship had changed. They would work together, but the easy assumptions were gone. The first session under the new arrangement was tense. Old habits tried to resurface. A counselor began to speak over Myray while she was presenting a proposal. She stopped speaking immediately. She sat down and stared at the counselor in silence. The chamber went quiet. The counselor realized his mistake. I apologize, Ambassador Choi. Please continue. No, Myray said simply. This session is over. We will resume when everyone remembers the terms of our return. She stood up and walked out. Captain Hyen and Dr. Yunji followed her. The entire human delegation left the chamber. The council sat in stunned silence. She had actually done it. She had walked out over a simple interruption. Speaker Velther spoke quickly. The counselor will apologize formally. We will resume tomorrow with proper decorum. The next day, the apology was delivered publicly. The counselor who interrupted Myray admitted his error in front of the entire council. It was humiliating for him, but necessary. Myray accepted the apology without emotion. Thank you. Let us proceed. The session continued. This time, nobody interrupted her. Nobody dismissed her ideas. Nobody mocked her suggestions. Slowly, over weeks and months, the council learned to work together properly. Humans mediated disputes, but now other species contributed peacekeepers too. Humans maintained trade networks, but others helped with infrastructure. Humans provided humanitarian aid, but others donated resources. The burden was shared. The work was collaborative, and it was more effective than ever before. The wars began to end. The Aquilian-Kragathi conflict was resolved through human mediation, with both sides making concessions. Smaller conflicts were prevented before they started. The refugee crisis was managed through coordinated efforts. Trade recovered. Communications networks were rebuilt. The economy stabilized. Life in council space slowly returned to normal. But it was a different normal. Species that had taken peace for granted now understood its cost. They saw the memorial every day. They remembered what happened when they took humans for granted. Ambassador, Jiho visited the council chamber 6 months after humans returned. He came quietly, as an observer. He wanted to see if the changes were real. He found Myray in her office during a break between sessions. She looked tired, but satisfied. How is it? He asked. Different, she replied. They listen now. They respect us. It is not perfect, but it is better. Do you think it will last? Myray looked out at the memorial through her window. It will last as long as they remember. The memorial helps. Every day they see the names. Every day they remember what peace costs. And if they forget, then we leave again, Myray said firmly. We taught them once. We can teach them again if necessary. But I do not think we will need to. They learned their lesson. Ji-ho nodded. He was proud of her. She had the strength to lead, the wisdom to negotiate, and the will to walk away if needed. Humanity was in good hands. He visited the memorial before leaving. He found the name of his former colleague, Ambassador Sujin Park. She had died 5 years ago in a peacekeeping operation. He remembered her funeral. Only humans had attended. Now, as he stood at the memorial, he saw other species stopping to read the names. A Venn counselor stood nearby, looking at the list of human casualties. The counselor was crying. "I never knew their names," the counselor whispered. "They died for us, and I never even knew their names." Ji-ho said nothing, but something in his chest loosened. Maybe they had learned. Maybe this time would be different. He returned to Earth feeling something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Years passed. The new arrangement held. The Council became a genuine partnership rather than a burden humanity carried alone. Wars became rare. Cooperation became common. The galaxy prospered. And every day, counselors passed the memorial. They saw the names. They remembered. Peace was not free. It was built on sacrifice. And now, finally, everyone understood that. Myra Choi eventually wrote a report to Earth. It was her assessment of the new council. 5 years after humanity's return. "We withdrew to teach them what they had," she wrote. "We returned to teach them how to keep it. The lesson was expensive. Billions died. But the survivors learned. They value peace now. They understand sacrifice. They treat us with respect, not because we demanded it, but because we earned it through absence." She paused, thinking about her final words. "We are not the galaxy's janitors. We never were. We are its architects. We build peace, one treaty at a time, one life saved at a time, one name remembered at a time. And now, finally, we are not building alone.